Not as long as you, but so I'm kind of a, maybe compared to you, I'm one of the kids, but compared to the kids, I'm an old fart now. So, and over the years, freestyle has been primarily known for its contribution for supporting wet darkroom. So we were the original importers of Oriental Seagull paper into the United
Oh, okay.
States. We were the original importers of Agfa in the Ilford. I mean, all the brands that you know and love. And I guess about in the year 2000, when I think we all kind of agree, or that digital photography started becoming popularized, we as a company kind of doubled down and said, you know what darkroom's not going away as much as everybody thinks it is. It isn't. People are still going to want to do it, and we really focused on wet darkroom. And my position at the time was purchasing, so I connected with all the smaller coating facilities in the world, and now we're the largest seller of black and white film paper and chemicals in the world.
Really?
So moving up 10 years ago, because I was kind of the center of darkroom, everybody who was involved in wet darkroom was coming to me for their information. I know, John Sexton, all the Ansel Adams guys, up in Carmel, Monterey. Um, I'm just really well connected all over the country and all over the world. And people started asking me about digital printing and how to get best results from a digital printer. What, simple questions like what paper should I use? What printer should I buy? How do I get best results? Everybody was coming to me because they trusted me on the darkroom side. Then it just so happened that commercial labs, colleges and universities started coming to us going, look, you've done all this great stuff on the darkroom side. Can't you help us on the digital side? And then the manufacturers, a lot of which who were people who had moved on from Ilford or Agfa or Polaroid or Fuji or whatever, were moving to the digital side, where they were like, please help us with this stuff. We don't understand it. We're not getting good results. Please, please. So I had a reputation for knowledge on the darkroom side that I didn't really have on the digital side, although everybody thought I did because I presented well. So I really focused on wet darkroom, and now, or sorry, I really focused on digital printing, and now I provide education for helping people really understand the process. Um, I try to bring it to a down to earth level. I try not to confuse it with a bunch of technical mumbo jumbo. I've heard a lot of people on John's series of conversations here. I've been during COVID listening to a lot of people who have been presenting video presentations on paper and color management. And all I can say is I do it a little differently. So I have a bit more of a holistic approach. I focus on paper more than anything else. It all starts with paper. So in a couple of weeks, when I'm on with John, I hope that we can have a good conversation about things like, what papers do work for certain images. You see behind me, I have a little studio set up in my apartment here. I've been most famous for a workshop that I've been presenting for the past 10 years called The World of Inkjet Paper, The Print Matters. So I also do workshops in color management. I teach digital fine art printing at Los Angeles Center for Photography here. We're in Culver City, California now. I've done workshops for Canon at their learning centers and Leica Academy, and I've literally been crisscrossing the country for the past 10 years presenting this particular workshop and connecting with colleges and universities and nonprofit photo organizations, events, trade shows, photo clubs, etc. And I've really learned by doing, by interacting with literally tens of thousands of people over the past 10 years.
What do you do with Canon?
What do I do with Canon? What do you mean? I have a big Canon printer right here. I print
No,
on it.
no, no, no. And do you endorse it?
Uh, well, let me put it this way. From a professional standpoint, because, well, look, we're a reseller, from a professional standpoint, um, I promote both Epson and Canon printers.
How about the
And I can
paper?
absolute say with certainty that with a custom paper profile and following best practices, I can get an excellent print from any printer. Now, which one is better? Come on, that's like asking whether a Canon's better than a Nikon. That's not the conversation, and really not the conversation we should be having. Do I endorse Canon? Yes. We sell more Canons than Epsons by far. And there's some reasons for that. There were some political reasons when we started doing selling printers. And I also have a closer personal relationship with Canon. But I also now have a really good relationship with Dano Steinhardt. We talk every week now. So to me, it's not a gear question.
If you
And
talk to Dano every week,
yeah, pretty much in the last couple of months.
do me a favor. Tell
Oh.
that SOB that I've been emailing him and calling him, and I haven't heard squat from that SOB.
Well, he told
and
me about that actually.
and if John still has,
And he
the
called you
picture-
worse names than SOB. So
well, I'm trying to clean this up. But if John has that picture of Dano and I was actually in New Orleans.
You want him
Throw
to
that
tear
up
it
on
up?
this. What?
You want him
Throw
to tear
that
it
up
up?
on the screen. No. That picture is a classic that will last until after we're both dead.
Don't show it. I'm trying to forget it.
No. Yeah, but you won't have to. But you won't have to take those fiber pills you've been taking.
Hey, Eric,
Yeah.
Ian here. We know each other from Palm Springs Photo Festival.
Oh yeah.
Quick question, not to hold it until you're speaking, but what do you think? Everybody is pushing metal prints and acrylic prints and so forth and so forth.
I just vomited my mouth a little bit. Sorry.
Fine with.
I mean, I gotta take a drink here.
That means I don't have to ask my question, which was going to be, what do you think of them?
I think that really, again, I approach this from a holistic standpoint. Holistic meaning, what do you want to do? What are you trying to present? To me, we as photographers have always had two parts to our market. We've had a fine art market and we've had a decorative market. Prints on metal and prints that are face mounted on acrylic, to me, are decorative products. They are not archival. They do not
right.
meet any sort of minimum requirement for archival permanence. I don't care how long they think dye sub lasts. It's dye. It is colored water with freaking optical brighteners in it, and it fades. I've seen those prints fade in 5 years. 65 years, bullshit. I'm sorry. Oops, you cut me off. Yep, there's Dano. Great. A young Dano with Minnie Mouse.
No. The one where we're Las Vegas.
Ah,
I'll have to look.
go. So to me, I'm not knocking them, right? There's a market for them, and people don't want to go to the cost and expense of framing a print. But do not fool yourself that a dye sub print on metal from Bay Photo or Blazing Editions or any of those companies, or a resin coated paper face mounted to a piece of acrylic, is a fine art product. So, and I do know there's famous photographers doing editions of their work on that type of stuff. Great. You can clean it off. It's durable, right? If somebody spits on it, you could just spritz it with something and wipe it off. But it isn't a fine art print. And I got to tell you, from a quality standpoint, and I will talk about this at some point next week or whenever, I can make a better print any day of the week on a better piece of paper. Oh, now I'm blind.
That's the one.
Oh. Okay, I'm taking a screenshot of that.
Oh, hang
No,
on.
you got
No,
it away.
I'll bring it back. Hang on.
I got to send it to Dano. Okay. Okay, I'll send it
You
to
need
him.
the high res so you can run off a 40 by 60.
Yeah, that's right.
So so to me, it's really about what you want to do. And I perform and I have performed for literally hundreds, I don't know, 1,000 photographers over the past 10 years, a service that I call an inkjet paper psychotherapy session. And I have a printer. I have a space at Freestyle. I do them remotely now from my studio here during COVID. But at Freestyle, I have an area where I have Canon and Epson printers. I've created custom profiles on a Barbieri for every single paper that we carry. I print one image on the same printer with custom profiles and let customers decide for themselves what paper is right for them based on a completely scientific environment with a GTI viewing station. And every single person that's serious about their work, when I print their image on a resin coated paper versus a fine art paper, whether it's Canson Platine or Moab Juniper Baryta Rag, something that is what I call transformational, they never go back to a cheap resin coated paper ever. Maybe for family and friends photographs, but not for a real fine art product, not to hang in a gallery or museum,
Let
not
me
something that they're proud of.
let me ask you a
And I
question.
also, hold on one second, Michael.
Okay.
The other thing is, I have had people that have brought in prints on metal to me and said, what about that new Hanamili Photo Rag Metallic? They have a paper came out 2 years ago. It's gorgeous. When you have a fine art print made on that paper versus side by side in the same environment, a print on metal, there's no comparison. That Hanamili Photo Rag Metallic is far superior. For and it's gorgeous. Just the dimensionality of the color is fantastic. So prints on metal, I obviously don't have very many strong opinions on it, but it's a decorative product. That's the short answer.
Let me ask two follow-ups. One, what do you think of Canvas? And
I just threw
two,
up in my mouth again.
okay, good.
Sorry.
And the second is little outside of what you do, but you've see so many prints. Do you prefer museum quality plexi or museum quality glass in framing?
So on the 26th, I get to repeat myself, right, John?
Sure.
Okay. So so these are all things that I focus on. Again, it's the holistic approach. What does it look like, right? Canvas, technically, though, is the lowest resolution product we can print on with the least archival permanence. The least archival permanence. I can print any image on a fine art piece of paper, any fine art piece of paper versus canvas. The canvas looks horrible. Okay. I am not a fan of canvas, but then I also recognize again, 30% of all prints statistically made on an inkjet printer are canvas. But then you get the dumbed down canvas, which is this UV solvent canvas, which looks really horrible, but it's cheap. One of the things that I quote a lot, and I'm going to repeat myself. So hopefully you guys will show up again. There's a guy named Mark McCormick. I don't know if you know who he is. Some of you might. He used to work for Henry Wilhelm. He has his own company now called Ardenberg Imaging. And he's got a podcast that I refer to a lot. And it's a conversation. It's 10 or 12 minute segments. And in one of them, he talks about inkjet printing. And one of the quotes I love is he says that inkjet printing as a system of printing is the great pretender. And what he means by that is we have resin coated papers, glossy, luster, satin, semi, whatever you want to call them, that are plastic papers. They have the look and feel of a C print, a chromogenic print that you would have gotten from a mini lab or a commercial lab 30 years ago. It mimics that. It looks like that. It feels like that. We have semi-gloss fine art papers, Baryta papers, many of the Baryta papers that, done properly, have the look and feel of a black and white wet darkroom print. Not saying it's a black and white wet darkroom print. We can have that argument. It's not really an argument to me. There's no such thing as a better medium, right? If you want to make a black and white wet darkroom print, we certainly support that. 75% of our business is still wet darkroom. I want people to stay in the darkroom. I want people to have that experience. I want it to be taught. I think it's a great skill building class. But we have papers that can look like a wet darkroom print from a distance, not when you hold it in your hand. We have matte papers, smooth matte, textured matte. We could create images that look like watercolors and etchings and drawings, right? It's the same look and feel. And then we have canvas. We could make images that look like oil paintings, but it's none of those things. It is none of those things. It looks like those things, but it depending on what it is, it could have more technical archival permanence if it's handled right. To me, I go for the best. To me, good enough is never good enough. I have created my whole world around trying to help people understand the concepts that they need to obtain consistent, reliable, repeatable, and controllable results in fine art digital printmaking. And like I said, it all starts with my knowledge of substrate media and what we're printing on. So canvas, not one of my favorites, but again, people want to print on it and they like printing on it because they don't have to frame it, right? They just stretch it and put it on a wall. And it all has to be coded. It all has to be coded to have any sort of archival permanence because it does fade. So, okay, so that was one. What was your other question?
Glass or plexi?
Oh, so the trend is moving towards plexiglass because it's not as fragile and it's lighter.
The
In
plexi
terms
or
of
is it
museum,
acrylic?
what?
Is it plexi or acrylic?
Yeah, it's the same thing. I mean, the terms are interchangeable. Um, so the choice of museum glass or not, that to me has more to do with how you want to present your product and whether or not the paper has optical brighteners or not. So if you have a paper that you're using that contains optical brighteners, the optical brighteners need UV light to brighten. If they don't have UV light to brighten, you put museum glass on it, it blocks the UV light from hitting the optical brighteners. So when people come to me and say, oh, I use Epson hot press bright white or Hanamili hot press, Hanamili Photorag bright white or Entrada bright white. I go, oh, really? Why did you choose those papers? Well, I like them to be bright. I like the white. I'm like, okay, what are you framing with? I use museum glass. When I put a piece of museum glass, and I've done this hundreds of times for some of the top photographers in the world, makes the print yellow. You're blocking the optical brighteners from hitting you're blocking the UV light from hitting the optical brighteners that they need to brighten. Why would you do that? And optical brighteners fade. We know that. I mean, there's no argument. They have a certain life. I think the guy from Red River, right? I saw his conversation.
Yeah, Drew.
Drew, right? He goes, look, it's like a gas tank. It has a certain amount of brightening effect in it, and over time it will fade. Look at every white t-shirt you've ever had. They fade, right? So to me, museum glass is great because it's blocking the UV light and it'll help make your print last longer, but don't use a paper with a lot of optical brighteners in it because the choice you had made in choosing the paper then is negated by the fact that you're putting a glazing over it that is completely changing what your original, your visual, your unique artistic signature was for that image. So that's where the rubber meets the road for me, is people make choices on what paper to use based on marketing, advertising, what somebody told them, and forget there's a disconnect in terms of the whole process. The questions that you're asking, Ian or Ian? Ian? These are critical. These are the questions that I have spent my career trying to answer, and answer clearly, maybe not concisely, because as you found out, if I'm one of those guys, if you ask me what time it is, I'll probably tell you how the watch was made. But the thing is I think it's important. Why would you use museum glass on a bright white paper? It makes no sense. And I have, lots of images here that I use in my presentations. And whenever I do a presentation on inkjet paper, I bring a piece of museum glass with me. I have a LED UV flashlight so I can show people what papers have optical brighteners. And then you get to make the choice about what's right for you. I'm not saying to use it or not. I'm just presenting information so that people can make an intelligent choice based on, good, solid resources. So
What are the general categories of papers that do have a lot of optical brighteners or optical brighteners?
Well, basically all of your resin coated papers and inexpensive matte papers have optical brighteners. Specifically, any paper that's got the word bright in its title, it's got optical brighteners in it. Then there's others. Now, on our website, on Freestyle's website, I have a World of Inkjet paper comparison chart that I've recently redone. And the manufacturers don't always tell you whether the paper has optical brighteners. They're more apt to promote a paper that does not have optical brighteners, right? Because that's something that, you want to know. And on the boxes, they're not going to say this paper proudly contains optical brighteners. So what I've done is I've done a complete listing. It's sortable and searchable. It's a complete listing of every of the papers that we carry, which are all of the major brands: Hanamule, Canson, Moab, our private label Arista, Awagami, Innova, etc.
Red River?
Well, we don't carry Red River. Red River sells their product direct. So I don't have access to it. I have no relationship with them. Okay. I'm not saying it's a bad product. It's just their whole thing is they sell without the middleman.
But
So-
how many actual manufacturers of papers are there in the world?
That is a complicated question to answer. I should actually leave something for next week because I just kind of wanted to pop in here and kind of see
Okay.
what was going on with you guys and
Sure.
kind of get a feel because
Let
I've
me
got a
ask you-
meeting at 10:30.
Let me ask you a question.
I've got to go too. Sorry. I mean, I didn't think I was going to get into it this much. I was just going to kind of creep around the background.
Sorry about
I
that.
appreciate it.
Let me just ask you a couple of questions.
Okay.
So is your definition of a museum quality print have to do with the fact that the museum quality papers absorb the ink as opposed to laying on top of the paper?
No.
Okay.
Okay. Next question.
Eric has a 10:30 meeting. It is 10:30.
Yeah, I got to run off to a
Let's let him
10:30.
run,
So,
but
okay.
he's
so
going
this
to be
was a
our
little-
guest.
So this was a little preview. If you have questions, write them down, right?
Yeah,
You're gonna
gonna be here.
You're gonna keep me up until then.
October
I'm sorry.
26th.
Hey,
Look,
what's
you
the name?
can,
What's the name of what's the name of that thing? Freestyle what?
Freestyle Photographic Supplies is the name of our company.
Yeah, Jim.
What-
In
what's the
fact, what I'll
website?
do
Chat.
here, is I will put my email address in the chat area so you can email me. I spend most of my days working with folks, solving problems with printers and color management and talking to people and helping people decide what paper's right for them. I mean, this is my world. Even though I've been around for a long time, I have devoted my life and my career to really understanding this stuff and helping others understand it. Really, my motivation is, aside from the fact that I work for a company and we have to sell stuff, is I enjoy contributing to people's success. There's no greater feeling, positive feeling that I have when somebody says, I'm getting more shows, I'm showing more work, I'm selling more work. I deal with commercial labs where they say, I'm producing more work faster because I'm having to do less redos. My monitors are accurate. What I'm getting out of our printers is perfect. I've been to companies and I have created consistency amongst the variety of printers they have. Because many printers, as has been talked about in the past, no two printers print exactly the same. So working through, color management and paper choices and stuff, these are the things that are important. It's not what cameras people are using. It isn't really even what printers people are using. It's what work are you producing? How do you feel about it? How much control do you have? Are you making 10 prints to get a good one? Or are you making 10 beautiful prints?
Great.
So,
So we'll do more of this on the 26th.
By the
okay,
way,
I'm exhausted now. So,
Wait,
okay, guys.
do printers have idiosyncrasies like cameras do from the same manufacturer? In other words, if you got like a 50 millimeter lens from a Canon, and you decided you were going to test all 50 millimeter lenses on the same target, they will all not produce the same.
Right. There's no two printers that print exactly the same.
Now, if you took all these printers and you set them up according to your, your spider or whatever you use, all right, will they all change consistently or will they be erratic?
Well, the whole, okay, so this is the last one because I got to run. So color management is all about control. It's math. That's all it is. It doesn't care about your feelings. It doesn't care about what you like and don't like. It is math. That's all it is. And if you create custom profiles on a specific paper across a variety of printers, the same printer, yeah, they should all print the same. But it depends on the printer and how you're setting it up. And I'll leave it at that. Okay. So,
Good.
but there is a way
Thanks.
to do it. And my people in my next meeting are saying, are we having a meeting? So I got to run.
See you soon.
Talk to you guys later. Have a great
Thank
weekend.
you. Thank you very
Thanks.
much. John, you better schedule a lot of time for this guy.
Yep.
Absolutely.
The 26th will be here.
Mm.
So Douglas up there, you're doing a bunch of printing, or did you just finish your session at Photo Center? Did you just graduate? You're muted. There you go.
So I'm putting Zoom on my TV, so it took me a while to get my mouse over to it. Yes, I just completed my thesis project this year. Yeah, and the exhibition has been taken down. They've got a new one now.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe you still can see it on the PCNW website. There's both an artist talk there and a virtual tour of the gallery show that me and one other student had this year.
And did you do a lot of wet darkroom work there?
That was the original plan.
Uh-huh.
I shot with mostly with a panoramic pinhole camera on film. It's the theme was cityscapes, so it's of Seattle.
Mm-hmm.
But around March, when I would have been going into the darkroom to be making final prints, the place had to close. So I ended up working with the photo center, and we were able to get our prints made digitally at the photo center.
Okay. But normally you would go wet darkroom?
I do both,
Okay.
but for this project, I would have been wet darkroom and maybe even with some historical processes.
Mm-hmm.
So I've worked in platinum and
Yeah.
salt and some other things too.
Great. Yeah, I have to see if there's interest in alternative processes like platinum and the like. Maybe you can get some guests on for that later.
I have a friend of mine in Brooklyn that's at some sort of a workshop where they're actually processing film using coffee.
Caffeinol, yeah. Vitamin C and coffee and washing soda will make a developer. There's some YouTubes and lots of formulas out in the web.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't tried it. I'm kind of HC110, Rodinol, D76, all work well for me.
Accufine.
Accufine, yeah.
So Melissa, what have you been up to? I haven't seen you in a while. Muted. You're muted.
Yeah, I've been extremely busy with senior season. I'm
Oh.
ramping up. I've got 4 sessions left and then I get a break. So I'm good.
Nice. How is that working with COVID and all this
You
stuff?
know, I have booked 10 more before September than I did through November last year. So
Wow.
COVID has not stopped. And then we had those major floods too. And I thought between that and COVID, it would be a problem, but
Huh.
it hasn't been.
Glad to see someone's busy. Who else has things going on that they want to talk about?
Trying to
Can I
think
ask a
about that.
question real quick?
Yeah.
I was just going to ask, I jumped in a few minutes late. And you were talking about Pete Sousa. Are you going to
Mhm.
have him on?
No, I haven't talked to him yet. We were talking
Oh,
about that. I think MSNBC is going to have him on tomorrow night.
Oh,
in
okay.
an
Yeah, I
interview.
saw him speak in Detroit, shortly after Trump was elected. He's not a Trump fan.
No.
But he was amazing. That was a really good experience. And I have a book by him, and yeah, it was, so I guess I'll have to watch MSNBC.
Yeah, check their schedule. I'm pretty sure it's tomorrow night.
Okay,
Actually, they're showing his documentary. It's the only showing of it before it goes to streaming, I think, next Friday. So
okay,
after
right.
next Friday, I think it's going to be on iTunes and all the streaming services.
Okay.
Was there something else you wanted to bring up, Ian?
I was going to say, I'm trying to think what, I know I've been busy doing something and I don't
Oh.
remember what it was. I've got Mueller disease now. I can't think of
We've all reached that stage in life.
So Keith is saying tomorrow night at 10 for Pete Susan. I believe that's 10 Eastern, so 7 for us here on the West Coast.
You know, I have some dear friends of mine, which you all know, but they'll go unmentioned right now, that have made enormous metal prints from that Bay Company and also Whitewall. And one of the guys said that he was going to be putting the prints outside on his new home and the backyard as decoration. And I quietly said to them, it's going to fade. No. It's on metal. It's on metal. And Eric, his name's Eric.
Yeah, Eric Joseph.
Yeah, he proved my point. They're nice to look at, interesting. They're different.
Mm-hmm.
But the objective for their use is something that needs to be questioned by all of us that show images in galleries or for longevity purposes. So I was surprised what he said about canvas.
Mm-hmm.
I must say, I've always considered the acrylics and the metal prints, and not so much canvas. Canvas doesn't interest me. Seem very intriguing because they look great, and you cut back on those costs of framing. I've framed for one show in the past, and the framing costs were just
Yeah, framing.
serious. Especially because I was doing all high end framing with museum plexi and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So I thought about it, but it seems very fad-like to me, and I'm not a fad-like person. I'm like traditional things. So that prompted my question.
Yeah, I was always wondering if someone should come up with a rental company that rents out frames for exhibits.
Well,
But they get so damaged.
There are galleries and that have their own frames and will request you to send prints in a size to fit that framing. And they do move them. They do move the frames from show to show. So you get them your prints. They frame it in their existing frames, and at the end of your show, they unframe them and return what has not sold.
Isn't that kind of ass backwards though?
Another way of
mean,
doing it, I don't know about that.
Well, so like Mr. Surratt, we have a frame, make a painting to fit the frame. Shouldn't that be the other
Yeah,
way
I
around?
understand what you're saying, but again, with photography, if they have a standard print, standard framing of 16 by 20, if it's financially remunerative for you to deal with them, and they want to use their standard framing, it's a decision you make to do.
Yeah. Okay.
I've done that with showing a print at remote galleries. Specifically, White Box in Oregon offers that service.
Yeah.
But those are juried shows, so you're talking about one print, and shipping cost of a print, even just to Oregon, is like $40, $50. So it's worth thinking about.
Thanks.
I would imagine high-end galleries also have a brand. They want your experience of their space to be a certain thing. So they want a certain frame, a certain look. And I've seen galleries like that even in Seattle, where that whole experience is very carefully considered. So they don't want just any frame or anything. They've got a particular look that they're going for a particular clientele.
Yeah, I'm trying to find frameless framing things. I mean, I like some of these things where people putting a bar at the top and the bottom with the print between and hang the bar. Yeah, framing is just so expensive.
Someone was on here last month talking about how they did that. I think on here.
Yeah, it sounds familiar. It's probably where I got that from. I've got to look back. It's amazing. We've done about 60 of these talks since March or April.
One show a few years back where I also did, and kind of want to say it was 11 by 14s, 8 by 10s, 11 by 17s, just a whole slew of them. I don't think I even signed them, and they were just all thrown out on a table. There were there were frame prints around the gallery also. Of course, there was a regular show, but I also did those, and people kind of enjoyed looking through them. Of course, a lot of them got damaged.
Sure.
So you throw them away. And I sold them just each individually for $99, I think, and that was pretty successful actually. People just enjoyed standing at the table, thumbing through them.
Sure. Here in Seattle in December, we do something like that for the photojournalists, where everyone brings in a print to donate to a charity and a print to do a print swap, and they're just laid out on the table, and we all go through them. Yeah, it's a good feeling.
It was very cool. Not just because of the beer, but it was cool for other reasons too.
The pizza.
Pizza, yeah. But no, you're hanging out with other photographers, looking at prints, and having been able to hold it in your hands and feel the paper. That's a very cool experience. I mean, that's why I got into all the papers, is because they feel differently. And that's one of the things with framing, is that you lose a sense of what the paper looks like and what that print looks like sometimes on different papers.
Yeah, I was down Carmel to Kim Weston's recently, and all the artwork he has there is no glass. And if something's going out to a show, they'll do some glass for protection, but anything shown at home or in the galleries there, in his gallery, is no glass.
Maybe it's a measure of your success comparing your showings. If they're serving beer and pizza, it's not as good as if they're serving vodka and wine and sushi. So that's how it determines your status in life.
I don't know. I prefer the pizza.
Like, hey, we've got to pay for the sushi, so we got to charge more.
Can I ask another question?
Of course.
Okay, so this is a little embarrassing. You guys are extremely talented fine art guys, and I'm just a little senior portrait photographer.
That's
Just
Can we
talk.
talk about
That doesn't mean
monitor
talented.
calibration?
what's that?
Can we talk monitor calibration? It's the bane of my existence. I hate it with a passion.
Sure.
Any tips? I use probably 3 different print labs, and of course, I've never calibrated to their specs, but if I did, I'd have to do it for, depending on what I'm going to order from a different lab. So I don't know. If you guys have tips, I'd appreciate them.
What are you using to calibrate now? Are you using a spider or an I1?
I have an I1.
Uh-huh.
And it just, I don't know. I've followed instructions from certain people, and then the next person says, don't do it that way. One guy says completely darken the room to calibrate, but I'm not editing in the dark. So is that the
Mhm.
way to go? I just never know what the right way to do it is.
Yeah, I'm not the person to ask on that. I calibrate once every couple of months.
Yeah, I'm
I've
horrible.
got two inkjet printers, and the prints that come out look like my screen. So I just figured if it's working, don't touch it.
Right, exactly. But see, I'm not printing my own. I'm
Yeah,
sending them out to
yeah,
Millers and ACI and stuff like that. So
yeah. I mean, are
is
you
that
happy with the results you're getting back?
I I am for the most part,
Hmm.
but I have an iMac at the studio, and
Okay.
this is where I do most of my editing. And then I have a MacBook Pro at home that I have calibrated as well, but the screen is so much brighter and I haven't touched anything.
See,
And so I refuse to edit at home because I'm afraid the prints are going to
yeah, I
come back.
don't like editing on a laptop anyway, but
No, I don't either, but if I'm playing around at home
yeah,
with something,
many
I go,
people, the problem is they calibrate the color, but not the brightness.
yeah. But
The
my
brightness is
device
more
does
important
both.
to me sometimes because I want to get like a 90 to 100 CDM.
Okay.
Um, so which is a pretty dark because most people's monitors are set up for watching movies or playing games and they make them way too bright. That's why you always see people say, my prints are so dark. It's because your monitor
Yes.
is way too bright.
Right. And so I'll just, I'm following this one guy out of Australia, and he
Mhm.
is not a very nice person. And I'm afraid to post anything in there because he's so cruel about it. But, he's the guy that talks about editing or calibrating in the dark.
Mhm.
But so instead of recalibrating like he wants me to do, if I have a print side by side with the monitor, and I know it's not going to match because of the brightness of the
Sure,
screen,
transmission versus reflective.
but if it's too dark or too bright, I'll just adjust my monitor brightness rather than going right back to calibrating with a different number. And I don't know if that's the way to go.
I'll give
Do
you
any of
some
you
hint.
guys do this, or are you guys all
I'll,
fine art guys that print your own?
I'll give you a hint.
Okay,
Get a paper and pencil. Write this
got it.
down. Okay.
Okay,
Go to John Paul Kempenegra's website.
okay,
You know John Paul?
yeah, yep,
Okay. And he's got a whole bunch of free stuff that you can read until the cows come home.
okay,
And go to Seth Resnick's site, which is called D as in David 65,
okay,
which is an interesting number because D65 is for 6,500 Kelvin on your monitor.
uh-huh,
Okay. I use something, I forget the actual name, but it's from X-Rite. It's a
Color
little,
Monkey.
eye profile or
yeah,
something.
monkey.
Yep, I have that too.
Okay, and the monkey says to you, all right, put the monkey, all right, do your thing on the monitor, but then take the monkey and put it away from but near your monitor,
Mhm.
not in a dark room.
Right,
Not in a dark room. And
right,
what it's doing is it's calibrating the light that's falling on the monkey, which is also falling on your monitor. And as the light fluctuates, because you turn a light on, I have it on a rheostat, okay? It will adjust based on the calibration you've already set in your computer.
so
Okay?
you're constantly leaving it plugged in.
Oh yeah.
Hold on.
The-
There's confusion there. The
Okay.
Color Monkey has an ambient light measuring setting.
Yes,
When you do your profile, when it finishes, if you watch the menus at the end, it will ask you if you want to set it as an ambient monitor.
Well, you have to open it up.
right.
Yeah.
You flip the
Yes, it tells you to do that. The
Mhm.
monitor at the end of the profiling will tell you how to set it up as an ambient monitor and then ambient light monitor. And then you can set the time and how often you wanted to measure the ambient light in your room. Essentially what it does
Yeah,
every time it
right.
goes back in and measures the ambient light, it creates a new profile and automatically sets it to it. That can be a plus and a minus. So play with it. Don't set it too often. For a while, I had mine doing it like every 5 minutes, and I had about 1 billion profiles in about.
Yeah, I've heard both pros and cons on it too. So,
And I've also heard people say, don't use it.
mhm.
So I don't have a solid answer. I work in a room on one system for editing my photos. I do not use a notebook. I don't use my iPad. I will in a rush or in a hurry or something special, but I operate just on the one system. Comparatively, my editing monitor looks very flat, bland compared to my notebook, which is right next to it.
And do
So
you work on a matte screen or a shiny screen?
mine's, well, it's an ISO monitor, so I think it's relative. It's a matte screen.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not one of
But,
the.
but the other part of the monkey is that you can also set it to tell you when to recalibrate. I
Yes.
typically
That's
set mine for 2 weeks.
that's also in the end settings also. So
Right. So
for a while,
it went off last night. I have to recalibrate it for today.
yeah, I was doing it. I think also, as a matter of fact, every 2 weeks. But again, I took it off. My monitor is the ISO monitors are a little bit different. So mine is pretty static, and I don't need to really do too much. I'm always in the same lighting conditions for the most part, and that's the only monitor I actually use for anything.
But the color itself, the color built into the monitor itself will change the older it gets.
More so in CRTs. I don't believe that's the case with necessarily as much the case in modern monitors.
No, no,
But I'm not an expert in that area. But CRTs, yes.
no, I got rid of all the CRTs.
I think Joe had a question. Let's see if his voice comes through. Still not hearing you. No, is your mic plugged in?
Write a note, hold it up to the screen.
Right. Getting back to the calibration. So Seth Resnick has this thing D65, John Paul Campanegro. They're a team together. They really are. Seth is more anal than John Paul Campanegro, but John Paul Campanegro is really on target with a lot of this stuff. Now the other thing about your labs, once you set up your computer and your monitor for what you think is right, you take a file and you send that file, the exact same file, to all the different labs that you work with. Wait to see what happens when you get back your prints and see if any of them match what you originally saw on your monitor or your own print.
Yeah, but if I'm calibrating every 2 weeks,
Yeah.
I've got 35 seniors to order for. I can't wait and play this waiting game for the labs to send them to me. So
No, so what you do is what you simply do is do this once, okay?
Yep.
And then that becomes the lab you're going to deal with.
right.
And then once the senior week is over with and you send out all your files, right, go back and do the calibration again with the same 2 or 3 labs, because they'll change also. You should also ask them, if you're giving them a lot of money, well, any kind of money, because it's your money, how often do they calibrate their machines? And tell them you don't want to hear any bullshit. You want a straight answer. And the way you can check that out is that before you send them the file, you're sending them a TIFF or a JPEG?
JPEG. Is that bad? I thought that's what
I don't know how. I was going to say, if you're sending them a TIFF, all right, then I would tell you to lock the file.
No,
And Huh?
Sending him a JPEG, she's fine. What labs are you
No.
using, Melissa? I'm just
No, but
curious.
can you lock the file in a
Yeah,
JPEG?
I don't know.
yeah,
I
no,
don't know.
yeah, the
You guys
JPEG.
hear me now?
Yes.
Cool. Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
So what I thought I heard, I'm not an expert at this, but what I thought I heard Melissa saying is that she's getting different results from different labs where she sends her work. I would just think that monitor calibration is one thing that is constant for the monitor and the environment you're in. And then when you output files for different labs, there may be something on the output side about, understanding their profiles or whatever. But I'm surprised that would be a conversation about monitor calibration. I mean, the monitor shows what it shows. And if you have different results from different output sources, that would be something later in your post-processing. Just what I'm wondering.
Yeah, but
Yeah,
if the lab,
I
but if
think-
the lab.
No, I
doesn't-
think Joe's right. You have an output profile, print profile provided by the lab, but you profile your monitor so you can see what you're looking at. You're
Right.
using their profile as your print profile. What Michael is saying is good, and the case. And if you're using a reputable lab, one of the main labs, you're okay. Some years back, I went to one of the big upcoming new labs that was doing something, and they were all over the place, and they happened to be not far away from me, and they invited me for a tour, and they had just some time back, they had all CRT monitors, and they had horrible lighting in the place, and I asked about calibrating, and they didn't, and I stopped using them about 9 seconds later.
Yeah.
But if you're using one of the big reputable labs that we all know of, I'm sure they do.
Yeah, well, I'm using ACI lab for loose, like prints, 5x7s, 8x10s, that kind of thing. And then I'm using Miller's for my albums. But I thought it would be really nice to just use one lab, then I know the quality, but Miller's prints are slightly on the warm side for me.
Let me ask you
But
something.
their albums
you
look
ever-
fine.
Have you ever asked the labs what paper they're using and what calibration they're using? Because if you do and they give you that information, you can set up your monitor to the same color management.
Right, but here's the problem with that. I'm using 3 different labs.
Yeah.
So-
and I don't know if you can expect the same between prints and albums. I mean, they're
That's
probably
true. I
printed on
love-
different machines.
Yeah, I love the look of Miller's albums, but I don't love the look of their prints. And so
Yeah.
it would be, like I said, it would be really nice if I could just calibrate to the profile of whatever the lab is, but I'm ordering different things from different places.
Well, what's the
I think-
difference? A print is a print.
No,
Whether they put it in
But-
an album,
yeah, no, album, that's a
different.
different market entirely.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, paper.
aren't they using aren't they using inkjet paper?
I don't know, it's e-surface paper is what the
Yeah,
signature albums
you
are
got-
from Miller's. I don't know what the difference is between
Yeah, but you
that,
can
but their
calibrate for that.
prints are different.
Michael, that's like a wedding thing. It's an entirely different market, entirely different printing operation. So yeah, that's more like book printing.
Yeah, I don't even know if they're doing C prints or if they're doing inkjet these days in most
Yeah.
labs.
Yeah, I was going to say it's more like CMYK printing.
They're not doing C prints. They are not doing C prints. That would be insane if they're doing C prints. First of all, there's an ecology problem, and number 2, the cost factor
Hmm.
would be outrageous for a major lab to do that if they weren't using inkjet.
Yeah, my 2 cents would be if you like Miller's album, stay with them.
Yeah.
And
I like Miller's albums, I like ACI's prints.
yeah, then I would stick with it, calibrate your monitor. If your prints are coming back the way you like them, leave it alone.
Well, that's the problem. Sometimes they come back too dark. And
well,
this is where, do you calibrate in the dark? Do you calibrate in the ambient light? What do you
calibrate to the light that you're working in most of the
Okay.
time.
So don't listen to the guy that says calibrate in the dark.
Absolutely.
No,
not.
absolutely not.
Okay.
I don't know
Perfect.
who it is in Australia that's telling you that, but no, that's
Okay,
completely wrong.
all right. Thank you. I'm
And-
sorry to
and-
cut to
and
the
the other thing is,
conversation.
ask
And never
questions.
listen to Nuler.
No, ask the lab a question. What papers are you using? What calibration method are you using? Are you calibrating? And how often do you calibrate? That's a normal question.
Mhm.
ACI is a serious operation. I'm sure they're doing the right thing.
Oh, yeah. Sure.
Ask them what paper and how they're calibrating.
Mhm.
And I'm
'Cause then you can do the
doing
same thing.
basic prints. They're just doing basic, consumer, Fuji, whatever it is, Fuji luster and Fuji gloss. And
Yeah, I'm sure it's probably that. I guess I've
So
never really.
Is it paper or is it a plastic?
Oh no, those are papers.
The papers?
This issue of getting things right from screen to print drives most photographers that I know slightly crazy. Unless
Yes.
they've dug into it, unless they figured it out. Most people just like, I want it to look good on the screen. That's where most people look at it. I don't want to have to deal with this because you're dealing with color cast issues. You're dealing with different calibration and people liking one tool versus another tool. It makes us crazy. We would much rather talk about camera bags. So
True.
feel this is just you.
You tried other labs for your prints?
I used to use White House and they were a little too inconsistent, so I switched to ACI.
Okay. I have my own preferences.
We all
But
do.
ACI is fine.
Well, what's your preference? Should I
Well-
try somebody else?
Bay Photo has always been a big favorite of mine, and they're
Okay.
really great people, very helpful. I can give you referrals there if you like. But if I were to pick one right now, I'd pick Bay Photo. For my Mutt and Jeff prints off my photo shelter site for self-automated print delivery, I've always used BWC in Texas. I knew the people there also, don't really know them anymore, but I also liked them because they were, Texas was somewhat central. And
Mhm.
so print delivery from one coast to the other was always about the same. So that was just another thing. But again, those are just routine prints, your 8x10s,
Right.
stuff like
Right.
that.
Cool.
Other than that, I do like Bay Photo. They're just really good. I buy things based on the people.
Mhm.
All my relationships in the photo industry have been based on people, my equipment purchases, just like Eric said, buying, he's got a preference for Canon because of his personal relationships. That's why I bought Canon printers for a while. I'll probably next time going to go to Epson because Dano said he would come out and TP my house if I didn't. And I've actually been in 2 of his promo videos. So
Is that with the socks and the glasses on?
yeah, my glasses and my wig. So yeah, I go based on my relationships, and that's why I've always gotten around to all the conventions and met people and so forth.
Mhm.
So if I have an issue, I can pick up a phone and say, "Hey, help me out with this." So
Right.
anyway, that's
Anyway,
I'm done now.
okay, we're at the top of the hour. Any last minute words of wisdom to share with each other? Otherwise, we'll see you on the 19th, I believe is the next one, with Dale Bernstein, who assisted Avedon and Penn back in the 80s. So I want to hear some of his stories.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that.
Cool. I'm going to stop the Facebook.
Great to see you all.
Nuller
Take
went
care.
to school with Penn's father.
What's that?
Nuller went to school with Penn's father, actually.
Oh,
No, Stieglitz. Stieglitz.
Oh, yeah, I know it was one of them.
We.
Nuller, a little older, Stieglitz used to let him hold the horses while he was shooting.
No, the shovel. I was the shovel guy.
someone's got to follow behind.